The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the expressed written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
stationed atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching.
Good evening, Spaced Out Radio. Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high. Get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners and settle down snugly at mile marker 419.9 in colorful Colorado. It is Monday, July 23rd, Tuesday, July 24th for those of you on the East Coast and beyond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. I hope you guys had a rockin' weekend and an awesome day and an even better evening. I am your host, Tessa TNT, and I am live tonight broadcasting from beautiful Bayfield, Colorado. We are 150,000 strong nightly on Spaced Out Radio Network, spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, Paranormal Radio, TalkStream Live, as well as Deep Talk Radio, which you can find at deeptalkradio.com. Don't forget to head to the website, spacedoutradio.com, where you can peruse the Spaced Out Radio store and read the encounter online dealing with everything strange, paranormal, and odd. Tonight I have a treat for all you guys and gals out there. Tonight we will be talking to and getting to know Mr. Butch Witkowski. Butch is a well-known crypto, UFO, and ET investigator from the state of Pennsylvania for the last year. Butch has been tracking a bipedal canine-like creature that is similar to Dogman in the state parks. Butch Witkowski has been an independent researcher since 1989 when, along with 4 other people, he witnessed a UFO of unbelievable size quietly hover above a mountain in Tucson, Arizona. It moved slowly up and down, then rose upwards, moved forward, then vanished at a lightning speed. Calls to the Sheriff's Dept and news media and the local Air Force base yielded no sighting reports, and that is when he began his investigation into the UFO phenomenon that day. Hey Butch, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, my pleasure.
So I know a lot of us out there know who you are, but for those who don't, because we do have a lot of new listeners, who is Butch Witkowski, and what paranormal and other events have taken place in your life to get you to the point that you are now?
Well, I started 29 years ago with my first UFO sighting, and over the last 29 years, it's been pretty cool, pretty exciting, not only with UFOs, but with the crypto world and the paranormal events. So it's been a slow progression, but a steady progression. Just keeps going on. I mean, every day it's something new or something different. And I have a good group of folks, all seasoned investigators. Some of them are out there a long time more than I have been. So that's pretty much where I'm at right now. It is a lot of UFO sightings. The crypto sightings keep up with the bipedal canines, and although the paranormal stuff has kind of quieted down, it's had its moments over the years. So it just it was a hobby when I was working, and then when I retired, it became full time, and I seem to be putting in a lot more time doing this than I was when I was working.
Well, that's good how it works out too, you know, because when you are working, and it's hard to find that reserved energy to go out and do things that you really enjoy doing sometimes. And, you know, the last couple days I've been sitting here thinking, what do you ask the man that has been asked everything, you know, kind of at a loss. But we were talking a little bit earlier, and you said earlier in your life you had some paranormal experiences. Are you a believer in ghosts?
I'm a believer in, let me put it this way, I'm a skeptical believer. So I really need to see evidence. I really need to see the proof. I really didn't get into any of the paranormal stuff, but I knew a local group in the area that has been around since the 70s, and it's a family group. And I had asked them to take me along to show me what they do and how they do it and what type of equipment they use. And it was very enlightening. They were very empathetic with the folks that they were taking care of with the investigation. Very professional, used top-notch equipment. And what happened that evening, I didn't expect to happen. I was really just relegated to watching the monitors with a family member, and a doll, which was in a box as a Christmas gift for a child. Was one of these dolls that when you push a heart on its chest, it would say, you know, hi, my name is so-and-so, or do you want to go out and play? You know, kind of the simple stuff. And then it turned out that everything was quiet. Things were going on in the house. I could see everybody on the monitors. And out of nowhere, this music started playing. And I looked in. I was only a couple feet away from the doorway where the doll was sitting. And the doll lit up and basically said, I can see you. Wow. And pretty much about that point, I was ready to start looking for a doorway to get out of. But that's all it said. And the only thing I could think of was anybody that had the recorder set up all through the house, that somebody caught it on tape. And they did. The people that were in the basement right underneath that room, they caught it on tape. And so when we really started looking into the doll was supposed to have batteries. It had no batteries in it. So there was no way it could have talked, and no way did it say. It said kind of silly little things, like in a very little girl feminine voice, like, do you want to go out and play? What's your name? Do you want to be my friend? You know, that kind of stuff. There's like 5 things it says. But one of the things that it doesn't say is, I see you. And that was said in a very deep man's voice. And that was the one that made me give the paranormal a second look.
Yeah, that's pretty creepy. How long ago was that?
That was 2 years ago.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it amazing. I mean, it was just so unbelievable. I mean, had somebody told me that story, I probably wouldn't have believed it, but I was sitting there. I was only a matter of 5 feet away when it happened, and I looked directly at the doll, and there was nobody else in the room. There were cameras on, of course. There were recorders in every room, and it was recorded. And when the family came back later on in that morning, about 3 or 4 o'clock in the a.m., we told the father about it, and he immediately took the doll outside and burned it.
Do you think that really works, or would that just release the spirit to possess something else?
Well, there hasn't been any problems at the home that I'm aware of. They've been back a couple times. But there were other things that were going on in the home, and it was, they had just moved into the home. They weren't even in there 30 days. There was a grandparent who was much loved that passed away right before they moved in. A young daughter who at that point was probably maybe 13, 14. She was complaining that somebody was in her room touching her. In the parents' room, a nightlight would go on and off by itself. And I was pretty much convinced when the nightlight went on and off, and we saw it on the cameras, on the monitors, and then that's when the one investigator told us that he had unplugged that light.
That's interesting. You know, they are a power source, and we all have, you know, energy within us. It's pretty interesting when they can power on a light that isn't plugged in, or a television, or a stereo. You hear stories about those quite often.
Well, you know, there's some of the paranormal stories are pretty fantastic. I mean, but so are stories in ufology, and so are stories in cryptozoology are pretty fantastic. Mm-hmm. But there are those reports and those stories and investigations you get involved in that you really don't have an explanation for. I mean, I had no explanation for that event, and you know, I've witnessed things in ufology that I have no explanation for. And I mean, they are what they are. It is what it is. I mean, what you see, what you photograph, what you video, what you see on thermal imaging, what you see on night vision, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I can't say what it is. I often have people say, well, who's flying them? Well, how do I know that?
Yeah.
Or where do they come from? Well, how would I know that? You know, all I can say is, you know, I seen something high in the sky doing maneuvers that are not normal. They are not, there's no wings, there's no engines, there's no empennage, there's no tail section, you know what I mean? And they're way high in the sky, and they zigzag from, you know, one side of the horizon to the other, and we don't have anything that fast. I mean, a ballistic missile doesn't go that fast. So, and, you know, and then watch it stop and drop and then come back up again. I mean, that's pretty bizarre stuff. And I've been fortunate enough to see 16, but I'm even more fortunate because I've never seen one alone, ever. I've always been in the company of somebody else. And in 3 of those cases, I was in the company of law enforcement. So it is, things are unexplainable. I mean, you'd have to be pretty naive to think that, you know, we're the only ones in the universe. I mean, that's just silly to me. But, you know, not only with paranormal, but, you know, then you get into the cryptozoology end of it, where you have, you know, things that are seen in the woods. Now, look, a lot of stuff in the woods are seen by people who live in the city. And, you know, the closest they ever get to anything wild, animal-wise, is the family cat or the dog, or they go to the local zoo. So when they see something shoot across a wooded area, and they say, well, it's big and brown and furry. Well, it could be a deer, it could be a bear, I mean, it could be a lot of things. But there are those cases where you have a Bigfoot report, and you have footprints, and The description matches the typical Bigfoot report type of image. And then you get to the scene, and they're standing where they saw it, and you're looking through binoculars, and you're looking at a tree stump.
Yeah.
So, a lot of it is misidentification. And then you have a lot of misinformation, which is put out there for purposes that till this day, I can't figure out why you would give out misinformation. I mean, if you've seen something, you've seen it, you describe it. If you're lucky enough to get a photo of it or image on a thermal camera or something like that, that's one thing. But to just go out and, kind of screw with everybody and saying, this is what you saw, this is what you chased, or it chased you, or whatever. And we had a case like that in Pennsylvania not too awful long ago, where a guy said that Bigfoot attacked his camper and was throwing rocks at it, busted a taillight, back window, and stuff like that. Well, when the state police arrived, what the guy didn't realize was there was somebody in a camper not too far away that watched him do it. And the state police advised him, don't ever do it again. But, so you have those type of things, and I think that's just people looking for their 15 minutes of fame, or they're out there just looking for fame and fortune, or they're going to write a book, or they're going to write some kind of paper, or they just want to be, noticed and identified as some kind of researcher or, investigator. But on the whole, most of the investigators out there are pretty square, and they tell it the way it is, and that goes for all the genre of the paranormal, whether it's ghosts or Bigfoot or bipedal canines or UFOs.
Yeah, and it brings me back to watching these different shows on television as far as news and crazy cases, and it when people make things up like that, it makes me think of the mother who poisons her child or makes their child sick just to get the attention. Like, they're just looking for some needed or wanted attention, or like you said, their 15 minutes of fame. And it's really sad when people have to tarnish the reputation of others in order to get that, when there are people like us out there that are experiencing these things. And why put a bad light on it when we're trying to do something good here just because you need attention or your 15 minutes of fame or some book to write that maybe some people will read it and buy it, but otherwise it's just, I don't know, it's pretty ridiculous.
Well, yeah, and, like a lot of people throw up the Roswell thing. Well, I said this a dozen times already. I got a library in my home here where I must have 8 or 12 books on Roswell. So what did I learn from 8 or 12 books? Nothing. I mean, yeah. Everyone has their own answer to the question of did it happen or did it not happen. And, it's just like, because somebody wrote a book on it and, they've seen something similar, I, as a investigator, are told by the person making the report that I have to believe what they're saying, even though there's absolutely no evidence of what they're saying was fact or true. But that being said, people crave attention. And we've had a couple over the years where the individual was living alone, there was nobody visiting, no family, and they made this fantastic report, and you only had to be there 5 minutes to figure out that this is just a lonely person needed somebody to talk to. Mm-hmm. And in one case, we still do keep in contact with the one fella because, he's got no family, lives by himself, has a job, he does well, but he just needs to talk to somebody. Now, whether he calls me and tells me about something he saw, or more likely he'll call and ask me a question about something he's read or something he saw on television. And but there are people like that, and then there are people that are very adept at what they do. I mean, they're good investigators, they're good researchers. Now, a lot of the old guys and gals, they're long gone, but you have this new generation that's coming up, and they have been for the last 5 or 6 years that I've noticed, that are smart. They know how to use a computer. They know how to do research. They know where to get the research information. They're technologically smart, as far as the equipment they're using. They know how to use it. They know what to do with it. They know how to set it up. They do their background research. I mean, they cover all the bases before they even start. And that was always, in talking with my guys and gals, you know, we all figure the same thing. You know, this is the future. These are the investigators and researchers of the future. And they're not going to take somebody's word as the end-all story. I mean, they're going to look and try to find out all they can, as best they can. And that's really, that's heartening to me, because some of the folks I've met in 29 years, I can't even describe over a radio what I think.
Yeah. There's certain things we can't say.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the radio would go dark. But you know, they have followers. There's people that believe them. You know, it just seems like the more fantastic the story they make up, or they try to push out there, the more following they have. And then there is the researchers that are really doing their job right, and you know, they don't push stuff out there that's just crazy. They just pretty much tell it like it is. I mean, this is what I saw. This is what we got on camera. This is the report we got. And there's this thing going on now that's just over the last year or so where investigators, and they should know better. I mean, these folks have been around a long time. I know them for a long time. They're giving out information, like they're giving exact locations. They're giving addresses. They're giving people's names. I mean, we never do that. I never give out anybody's name. I don't even ever give out the right location, ever, under any circumstance. So if I got something in a certain county, and you know, I'm getting a lot of questions on it, you know, and they say I'll put them in another county. I won't even let them near that spot. I don't want these people tramping all over somebody's front yard, or you know, bothering them at 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever. So we try to keep everything on the up and up with people that make reports. Their anonymity is very, very important to us. But it's been exciting for 29 years. It really has been.
Yeah, and when it comes to that, we basically leave it up to the people that we're helping. Would you like to have this on Facebook Live, or, you know, anyone to know your name or whatnot? A lot of people choose not to let that information out, and some people do. And if it is a case where the person is mentally unstable or, you know, maybe sick in some way, we just keep that to ourselves. And like you said, we follow up with them because there is help that we need, or they need. And, you know, we're not doctors, but any sort of positive or, you know, love or light that you can give a person to help them out in this world is great, you know?
Yeah. And it's just like no matter what type of investigation you're doing. I mean, okay, we'll take the bipedals for instance. They started with us 4 years ago, where we got the first bipedal report. We got the first description of what it looked like. 3.5 or 4 weeks later, we got the second one, and we're up to like 27, I think now. Everyone is identical. There is no difference. They are, when the people are giving the report, it's almost like I'm hearing that very first report all over again. They're staying within an area, our research area, which we call the Lichen Loop. They show no fear. I mean, they're very large. This is the type of creature, if it's real, could you know tear you apart in a matter of a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. I mean, you wouldn't even know it happened. And they have they've been encountered with people with guns, high-powered weapons, and they show no fear. The folks that are holding the weapon have all said the same thing. They just couldn't shoot. They were told somehow or another, telepathically, or maybe it's just a coincidence that they all had the same thing. Like, if I shoot, this is going to get really bad really quick. And we went back when we did our background research after the first two reports. I found a report in a newspaper from 1868 in Erie, Pennsylvania. I think it was called the Erie Gazette, if I remember right. It's long defunct, believe me. But a farmer shot at a creature that was attacking his sheep or goats. I forget which one it was. I'm pretty sure it was sheep. But anyway, his description, forgetting what he was saying and what happened and all that, just a description of the creature was exactly like we have from Mars. There's no difference. Mm-hmm. Same height, same build, same look, same large wolf head, hands. It was just amazing. So, because, you always get somebody to say, like, okay, Butch, where does it come from? What is it? What's it supposed to... Well, I don't know that. All I know is if it was back in 1868 and it's here now, my best guess is it's a relic. It's been here a long time, and it's going to be here a lot longer. What it is, where it comes from, I have no idea. Some people say, well, it could be a watcher watching over all the Indian graves we have here in Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania was all Indian until mid-1700s. I mean, this was all Indian territory. There were no white men here. And if there were very few of them. They were probably mountain men, doing trapping and stuff. We have, in our Lichen Loop area, excuse me, a lot of these areas where they're seen are areas where there were large encampments of Susquehannock Indian, Iroquois, Mohawk. I mean, they all were here. And, as they warred with each other, there were a lot of burial grounds. Some tribes burned their dead. Other tribes just buried their dead. But, the folklore of the indigenous has always been that there are watchers. There are watchers over these grave sites. Mm-hmm. And that could be. It could be a watcher. It could be something that, we don't understand and probably never will. But the only thing I can do as an investigator and researcher is I can't take the chance of just taking a digital picture, although we have the equipment to take a picture every 1 second. My best bet is to get this thing with a FLIR device and take pictures and video with FLIR. At least that way, nothing hides from a FLIR. I don't care if it's paranormal or something in the sky or something in the woods. It's not going to hide from a FLIR. A FLIR is your absolute positive, most definite proof that you can get. So we've upgraded and added more FLIRs to our mobile unit. We have night vision, of course. We have the digital cameras, security cameras. We have video cams that run constantly. So there's a lot of things I can do, but really the only thing I can do is, first of all, I've had people say, well, why don't you go out and bait it? I said, well, how would you like me to do that? Well, I just get some meat and throw some meat around and watch. I said, well, you're talking about just one of our locations is 6,800 acres. So where in that 6,800 acres would you like me to throw this meat? And then they think about that for a while and they kind of forget that one. But my best bet is to, just keep going into the research areas to where we have the sightings and set up the cameras and try to do it, using technology. I'm not going to be walking around in 6,800 acres. I mean, where would I even start? Yeah. So that kind of, it takes that out of the picture. So it's just a matter of, it's going to be tenacity and luck. It's going to be the only two things I got on my side, plus the technology. And we have a good team. Everybody's experienced. They all know what to do. Our mobile units are fully equipped. There's nothing we can't handle. We can stay out for a week without having to go anywhere. So that's the way we handle the bipedals. But when you talk about ufology, you're basically talking about sky watches. If you're going to look and you're not going to do an investigation, you're just going to look for them, then you need to, set up a star watch. And at one time, a lot of the UFO groups did a lot of star watches. I mean, some of them did them every weekend, around all year round. I find that now we'll get some, if we're not in the field with something else, we'll do star watches. I mean, I have a really great spot in my new location at my new home here where I have a lot of good sky, open sky, so I can, do it right out of my backyard. But that seems to have gone away. I mean, UFO groups don't seem to do that anymore. They just want to sit around and get reports. But, it's like the old story when people come up to you at a conference or something, or a speaking engagement, you say, well, how do you see them? Well, look up, right?
Yeah.
That's it. That's the answer. I mean, look up. There's no other answer. Can't say anything else.
Yeah,
But
most generally, you'll notice something. Sometimes you don't see anything at all, but there's a lot of activity out there these days.
Oh yeah. Now I've moved into this house in April, and I've seen out on my front porch. I've seen 2 in a 3-week period. I don't have any light pollution where I live, so that gives me clear sky. When it is clear sky, it gives me a good clear sky, and I don't even really need binoculars. I mean, it's that clear that I can see just eyeballing them. But there's a lot of different techniques out there now. Bigfoot, I'm not a big believer in that. I just don't think they're out there because what are they looking now, 51 years, something like that? They've been looking for Bigfoot. They got all these footprints, and they talk about DNA, which I think is a lot of crap because, first of all, with DNA, you need a control subject, So if I want your DNA, I got to go to your sister or your mom or your dad and get their DNA to match it up to yours. So they're the control subject. So where are they getting the control subject with Bigfoot?
Yeah, I think from what I've seen, they just gather hairs that they found on this log or another, and sometimes it comes back as a canine, other times it comes back as bear genetics. And like you said, there's really nothing to compare it to.
Right. There's no control subject, so therefore there is no DNA. Melba Ketchum, when she did her study, and I don't know where she got to. She was pretty much out there for quite a while, and then she kind of just went away. But you had a person. Now, here's a person saying that, you have DNA of a Bigfoot that you're relating to a female human. Now, where did you get that from? And then when that study was sent down to Australia, there's a group in Australia that they have cataloged the DNA of every known animal on this planet. And they came up with all the samples were a combination of deer, squirrel, dog, bird feathers, all kind of stuff. But there was nothing in there that led them to believe that it was some kind of super-duper DNA that proved that Bigfoot was part human and part ape. And then you have the group of people that say, well, the great apes crossed over from Africa. Well, how did they get from Africa to here?
Mm-hmm.
What did they do, go to Russia and cross over into Alaska and then come down through Canada? I don't think so.
They could have had time for that, but it's hard to say.
Yeah. And there could be something out there people are seeing that maybe has been there for a while or a long time, just like the bipedal. But it just seems like these creatures, although we have found injuries and a couple deaths with the bipedal canines going way back in research, back in time into the 18th century, 19th, 20th century. There were injuries and there were a couple deaths that were attributed to the bipedal canines. And same thing with Bigfoot. If you go back, there were the story of the trappers where all the dogs were pretty much ripped up, and one guy who stayed behind to cook supper, he got killed. That's all well and good, but there's no proof. There's no police reports. There's no reports to the state or to any animal group that this happened. So now I understand that back in those days they didn't keep a lot of records, but you would think that somebody that was killed by some unknown creature in the woods, be it a bipedal or a Bigfoot or whatever, there'd be some kind of report, especially when you get into the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. But there are no reports. I mean, we filed FOIA requests for those, and it just isn't anything.
We've had some sightings and experiences up here in our neck of the woods. We run a security business, and we were actually up in Rico guarding the mines up there, and you know, there's not a lot of activity except for hikers and bikers and whoever goes up the trail during the day, but at night it's pretty quiet. And we had large boulders being tossed off the side of the mountain and into the river near where we were. And then also going back up there with Four Corners Paranormal Investigations to the Enterprise Bar and Grill. We talked to a mother and daughter after we went up there. I actually found prints, but I didn't have any plaster cast or anything in my bag, which is soon to become part of my kit. But there was a mother and daughter there who one morning having coffee in a clearing saw an albino Bigfoot. But, you know, like you had said, these are just sightings. There isn't really any material evidence unless there's like footprints or anything like that. But, you know, back to the question, what do you compare it to? What is it?
Well, that and the fact that you know, all these reports, and they're in Bigfoot-wise, there's thousands of them, and with the bipedals, there's 100 or so over time. But you know, you can't interview these people or take the report and write them off as they're lying to you or they're making a story up. They saw something. Now, what they saw, that's really up to the investigator researcher to find out. But you have all those people, especially with the bipedals, like, okay, let's take Bigfoot first. Depending on where the Bigfoot is located, like it's Washington State, Oregon, Four Corners where you guys are at, down in Florida, the descriptions are all different. They're taller, they're smaller, they're thinner, they're wider. Some have no neck, some have a neck, some are female, some are male. I mean, it just goes, some are juveniles. I mean, there's such a wide variety, British Columbia juveniles and adults. So you have this wide variety, where with the bipedal canine, there is no variety. It is the exact same from one person to another. The story is the same. People are within, people are within arm's reach sometimes of these things. The newest one we have, and I'm going to say it's nothing, it was second to the newest, was a park ranger. Buddy went out to look at an area in a state park that is being turned into a walking path. So they just wanted to take a ride out there and see how far they got along, how far they went, and about a half a mile track they had done. And all they did was clear out the brush and put down some stone for people to walk on. It's not a biking path, it's just a walking path. And it just runs around a circle and brings you out on the other side where they built a parking lot. So as they're walking down through, and this game warden is armed. He's carrying a sidearm. And they are walking, and he hears something walking on the right-hand side of them behind them. And he thought, well, at first he thought it was a deer, and then he thought, oh, it could be a bear. He'd just keep his eyes open, you know, but it would stop, and they would stop, it would stop, they would move, it would move. So he just figured it was a deer and just kept on walking. So they got to the end, they turned around, and they started going back to their truck, and now it's on the right side again behind them. So he gets about halfway back to the truck, and he stops, and he turns around to look to see if he can see exactly what it is, and there stood the bipedal canine in the middle of the trail, and he described it exactly the same description that we had. So he turns around to his buddy and says, we need to get back to the truck just a little faster, but I don't want to be running. So, you know, it's the same old thing with a bear. You know, you run from any animal, bear, mountain lion, or anything, they think you're prey. But, you know, you just steadily back off, walk away. You got a good chance of getting out of it. But you run away, you become prey.
Yeah, you open up that hunter instinct. You know, just like when dogs chase wheels on a car, it's because they see that spinning wheel and it just kicks in their hunting instinct and they chase it. Sometimes they catch the tire, unfortunately, but it's best to stay calm in that situation.
Yeah, so they get back to the truck, and the trucks, they have this little dugout. They dug out a parking lot there, and it's kind of in a bowl, you know, like the woods go up and around higher than the the parking area. And as he's walking back to the truck, and now he said there it was. He said it was up on the hill staring down at us. He said, I never heard it go past us. There it was.
Yeah, and even if you
So-
don't see it, you generally get that instinct, you know, the hair raises up on your neck or your arms. You feel something's watching you, something's tracking you or hunting you, and it's just really disheartening.
Well, yeah, and it's like I said, you know, you can't call everybody that sees something in the woods a liar because they've seen something. Now, do they know what they've seen? Well, maybe, maybe not. Or was it pareidolia where they think they saw what they saw, or a tree turns into a Bigfoot, or you know, a deer running across turns into a bipedal. I mean, it just, there's so many factors that go into what happens, which is why, you know, we'll take all the information we can get, but when it comes down to it, if I have to prove something, I have to do it with technology. That's the only thing I got. This thing has stealth. It has speed. I mean, evidently it can appear and disappear whenever it wants to. So what do I got? I don't have any of that stuff, so I'm stuck with technology. So hopefully, you know, throwing out all the best technology we can put out there, all the state-of-the-art stuff that we have, hopefully I can, you know, at least get one on the floor, even if it's for a fleeting minute. I'll take a fleeting 30 seconds. But, you know, it's every investigation is different, you know. Sometimes we're going into a heavily wooded area, sometimes an area where there's caves or ravines. There's just so many different places that these things are seen. They're not just seen in one area. And they're not always seen just standing in the woods. Sometimes they're on the road, you know, ripping up a roadkill. That happened twice. We've had one encounter with a hunter in a tree stand where a creature, which had some different things about it other than the ones that we got reports on, actually walked up to him at the bottom of the tree stand and was looking at him and growling at him. Now, we never had that happen before. We've had strange screams in the wooded areas where we have game wardens and federal game officers saying, I've never heard anything like that in my life. But one commonality that we have come up with is that wherever we have coy wolves, which is a cross between a coyote and a gray wolf, we have a sighting. And the coy wolves run in packs, and they're just as dangerous as wolves. I mean, you know, you may face off one in front of you or two, and you got your pistol in your hand, you know you're going to knock them out, but you're not even thinking about the 5 or 6 or 10 that are behind you. Same thing as a wolf. They have that wolf mentality. And there's just so many factors with this cryptozoology stuff. I mean, I've on my desk here I have, you know, books on werewolves, books on lycanthropy. I have books on bipedal canines. I mean, they've been reported over years, but it's difficult because they don't leave this lichen loop area, our research area, that we've never had a report outside that area, which is strange to me because although that area, some of the biggest, deepest forests that we have here in this state, you would think that they would be in other places because we have woods in the western part of the state and we have woods in the eastern part of the state, north and south, but they just seem to stay in that center section of our state. And there's no comparison to what we're looking for to a dogman report. Dogman is a totally different creature. First of all, they're smaller. Some have fluffy hair, multicolored, shaggy tails, long ears. They're seen mainly on all fours, and then you know, they're seen digging in garbage cans, rooting around storefronts, and you know, they're feral dogs is what they are. But you know, till somebody with an imagination gets hold of them, they turn that dog, and it could be a large dog, it could be a German Shepherd, so they change the German Shepherd with their drawings or whatever, and all of a sudden it's a wolf, you know, and it's got, you know, the basic wolf features, and they got standing up on 2 legs. Well, where I used to live, I was only 7 miles from a wolf sanctuary. And I went up there one time to see just how long a wolf could actually stand on its hind legs. And it was only a minute or two. And even when they stood up, you could hear their hips pop, because they weren't meant to do that. Now, this particular wolf, a very large gray wolf, had this hankering for watermelon. He loved watermelon, so we got him to stand up quite a few times. And but I'm telling you, now that was just a wolf. I'm 6'1", and I was looking at that wolf pretty much eye to eye, and his head was twice as big as mine. And I'm thinking, like, you know, you'd have about as much chance as a snowball in hell to get away from it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, you know, like people say, well, you can outrun a bear. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll put my money on the bear.
Yeah, they're pretty fast. I can't run that fast.
You know, I think what they say, a bear can cover like 50 yards in a matter of some few seconds. But I like the one where they always tell you, like, well, if you get attacked by a bear, just lay down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, make it easier for him to eat you, but you know you're going to die. I don't care what you're doing. You know, you're laying there playing dead, so if he takes a swat at you and rips half your head off, you're going to die. But we, you know, like I said, we found attacks that took place in the past. Nothing, you know, recent as far as attacks or injuries. But all investigations, although at one time I would have said I never would have said this, but I do say it now, sort of, kind of, and that is, I think all this cryptozoology, ufology, paranormal, it's all one thing. Now, whether it is how it's combined, because there have been UFO sightings where there are things happening with a paranormal event. You've had creature sightings where there's been a UFO sighting or a paranormal event. I don't know how they're linked, but I think there's a link somewhere. And only time and investigative prowess is going to tell you what that is.
Yeah. So, was it this bipedal dog creature that you were just talking about? Is that the same one you've been tracking through the state parks?
Yes, yeah. Yep, that's the one. 8 to 10 foot tall, large wolf head, short pointed ears.
Jeez.
Long snout, massive chest, long arms with hands, claws, thin-waisted, massive thighs, and hock legs like a dog. And that's what. And glowing yellow eyes. They all have glowing yellow eyes. No, like the dog men type of deals that we get reports from Ohio and western Pennsylvania. A lot of them say, well, glowing red eyes or glowing pink eyes. These all have glowing yellow eyes. Every report that we have had the same thing, glowing yellow eyes, whether it was a daytime report or a nighttime report. Glowing yellow eyes was a kick.
Yeah, glowing yellow I can see. Red I really haven't seen in, you know, an actual animal's eyes. It's always something darker.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, it's...
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, in ones that we're looking for, and we don't even know if we're looking for more than one, or we're just looking for one. We don't know. Because, like I said, this lichen loop area, I mean, you know, an animal like that, built like that, could cover a lot of territory in a short period of time. Mm-hmm. So we just don't know if we're 1 or 2 or 10, who knows.
Yeah, and, you know, they've been talking about dogmen, and is this the same creature being seen repeatedly, or is it somehow throwing offspring? You know, could they, you know, perhaps if it was like a government experiment and it escaped as a pair, I could see that, but do you think it would be possible for it to breed with like a wolf, perhaps?
That's been brought up a number of times in the past, but we couldn't find any connection to government. Unlike Bigfoot, where they have all kind of stories out there of Bigfoot and government connections of some sort. whether it's retrieving wounded Bigfoot from fires, forest fires, or finding little ones or whatever. We can't find anything like that. And the dogmen, as far as combined with the bipedal canines, one of the biggest thing is the dogmen always have paws. They don't have hands. Every one of the dogmen, every one of the bipedal reports, they say long muscular arms with hands and claws. And all the dogman reports say paws. They have paws. So if they're picking something up, they have, they're cradling it in their paws. They're never seen running or walking on their hind legs. They're seen standing up, but they're mostly seen on all fours, where the bipedal canine is always seen standing up, never been seen on all fours ever. So it is kind of weird that this creature, up until 2014, there was no report of it. And then in 2014, we get the first report, and a couple weeks later, we get a second, and it's continued up till now, 2018. So we have some expeditions planned to go to some areas that we've been to before, and to some areas where we just found out that there's a series of caves and a couple old abandoned towns and railroad junction stations that are now abandoned. So our thinking is, if it's been around that long, it's got to have some place where it goes to take care of, if there are others, to take care of the elderly or to take care of young ones. So we're going to check those places out, and our regular areas that we have under research now. It's you're looking for a needle in a haystack, basically.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and it's just like, like I said before, when somebody says, well, how do you see the ones in the sky? Well, look up. Well, basically that goes for everything. I mean, I have yet to have somebody explain to me EVP, even though there are some people that truly believe in EVP. There's another group of people that say, it's all hogwash. I'm in the middle because I don't know. I'm pleading ignorance truthfully because I just don't know. I don't know what they're trying to do. And I know at stuff that we've recorded over time, there you get a lot of white noise, and we have some really good recorders. And white noise can make things sound really goofy.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's when your mind takes over and you're hearing things that really I can hear, and it comes up with something. You may hear it differently. Another person may hear it differently. But I have yet to be around these EVP things where, you have 5 or 6 people going like, yes, that's exactly what was said. It's always like one guy will say this, and these 2 ladies heard this, and this guy heard this, and this lady heard that. So nobody's hearing the exact same thing. And it's just like when I was in school, and I'm going to date myself here, when you go back and you listen to the record Louie Louie, when I went to Catholic school, so that was actually banned because they said if you played it backwards or played it really slow, it was, a demon talking, a devil. And I always thought that was kind of strange. But with EVPs, it's what people believe they hear. It's just like with the stuff in the woods, it's what people think they see. But it's up to us as investigators, whether you're doing paranormal work like you do or the kind of stuff that we do. We can't go out there and just tell people what we saw. We've got to prove what we saw.
Yeah.
And, or have some type of evidence or proof. With no evidence, no proof, you just got another story. And I've read so many of them, I pass them off anymore. It's just, or the ones that really kill me are the folks that, they buy the newest book out on paranormal or the newest book out on ufology or something. And then they make a report, and they're basically almost giving you paragraphs out of the book as to what they saw. And you already got the book, you read it. And then when you mention that to them, they go like, oh, well, yeah, I read the book, but it wasn't like that. It was more like this. So then they start to, check everything else out, and then this story just starts to get better and better and better, and pretty soon you're getting a headache. Just want to go have a beer.
Yeah, but, for real.
It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun with it. And then there's times where we've had things happen on expeditions that were strange, and we had no explanation for it. And that's it. You can't make stuff up. You can only say what exactly happened, how it happened, why it didn't happen, why it shouldn't have happened. And that's where the report is. You just put in what happened or why not, and hope that eventually it all comes together.
Yeah, and it's really great when you do get that whole story, and it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
on that note, Butch, we got to go to break, but when we come back, we'll be getting to questions from our people in chat.
Okay.
And we're talking with Butch Witkowski. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
There's news, and there's The Encounter. This is Spaced Out Radio News Director Everett Thiemer inviting you to check out The Encounter. Our half-hour news segment every Monday through Friday night is different compared to what you're used to. Our goal is to bring you the weird, strange, and interesting stories the mainstream tends to leave out, and stories that will make you scratch your head in disbelief. The Encounter can also be found at spacedoutradio.com and on our Facebook page, SOR The Encounter. Come give us a read.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. This is Tessa, TNT, and Dave is actually out tonight dealing with a family tragedy. So keep him in your thoughts and prayers and send him some positive energy. But tonight, we have Butch Witkowski with us, and Butch, how are you doing?
So far, so good.
That's good. So long as you're comfortable. So we had a few questions from the chat room, and
Alrighty.
Sleepy was wondering, has Butch heard about the large condor-like birds in the woods of western Pennsylvania?
Yes. They've gone from the gamut of eagles to pterodactyls. I mean, they're all over the place. Of course, there's no photographs. There's a lot of reports. I don't know what they're looking at or what they're seeing. I'm pretty sure it's not a pterodactyl or a pterodactyl. I mean, they kind of went extinct a long time ago. But there's still the reports. Now, I don't know what they are. what they could be. I mean, we have a lot of very large birds in Pennsylvania, but we've had condors from California that got caught in the airstream and have been seen in Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
You know, so it's not unusual, and I don't know what it is they're seeing. I'm just thinking that, you know, first of all, the distance that people are seeing it from, they're on the ground, they see something that they think is really high in the sky. It might not be very high in the sky, and it might just be, you know, an eagle. It could be a vulture, turkey vulture. They're very, I mean, these things are very big. And to somebody that's really not into birds, I mean, they could look very large. And I think a lot of that, of the large birds in Pennsylvania, are misidentification of a certain species.
Yeah, and that's completely possible. I find it interesting because down here in this area, Dove Creek and throughout the lower portion of Colorado, there's been sightings of these little tiny, they look like T-Rex, but they're no more, like in pictures I've seen and stuff, they're no more than a foot tall. So it's pretty interesting how these different creatures are being sighted, but it could be confusion with something else, like you said.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've had those same things you just mentioned, they've had out in western Pennsylvania. Now, you know, that takes you to like now we're getting into the Loch Ness Monster area and the Champ, these things that are in landlocked lakes. So how did they get there to begin with if it's landlocked? I mean, did somebody take their little brontosaurus and put it in the water, or I don't know what they're looking for. I think a lot of that is misidentification. Again, it could be a log. A lot of these landlocked lakes, you know, they were places where people lived. There were farms, there were silos, there were a lot of trees and a lot of land that was just covered over with water, and, you know, this stuff is floating to the top. So, you know, what are they seeing? I mean, I really don't know, but I'm pretty sure we're not dealing with large lake snakes or those type of.
Couldn't you take that back to when the Earth was flooded and then it, you know, slowly dried out or drained or however that happened? Certain things being stuck in certain areas. And as well with the Bigfoot, what about, you know, when we had the large, you know, frozen portions of the oceans? Humans made it across, so why not the Bigfoot or the ape or whatever we're seeing?
Oh, all that's possible, sure. I mean, the Ice Age brought a lot of things down. I mean, there are rock formations in Georgia and North and South Carolina that there's no way that rock ever was in that area, but with the Ice Age, it was brought down and it was placed there, and that's where it is. A lot of quartz, which is not native to certain areas in that part of the country, is there, and the Ice Age brought it there. And you know, we don't know enough about the things that people are seeing. There's really been very little documentation of it. The flying cryptids, you just don't know what they're seeing, what they're looking at. Mm-hmm. And again, the devoid of no photographs, or and with Bigfoot, every photograph taken of Bigfoot is blurry. So
yeah,
is that something that is a really bad photographer, or a cheap camera, or a lousy camera, or a camera phone,
or is it with super fast ninja action?
Yeah, exactly. Or is it something that is controlled by the subject you're trying to get the picture of?
Yeah, for sure. Well, Kat in SR chat room is asking, Butch, what would your prize capture or prize submission you are waiting to see?
Oh, to have this thing on FLIR. I dream about it. That one of our cameras, whether the ones mounted on the vehicles or the ones that are on the ground or the ones we have hidden, or the ones that are out in the open get this thing on a FLIR. Once I get it on a FLIR, there's going to be no dispute what it is.
Yeah. And when you were talking earlier about the tree stump, it popped into my head, perhaps she was taking a picture with a FLIR camera and it looked like something hunched over when really it was just a tree stump from, residual sunlight heat that it had received during the day. Perhaps that is what she thought she saw, or just something in the dark. But FLIR cameras are amazing. We've gotten quite a bit of captures on those.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, nothing hides from a FLIR. I mean, it's heat and cold, and you're not going to get a detailed picture, but you're going to get a good enough picture. You're going to be able to see what it is or what it's not. And there was a Bigfoot report not too awful long ago here in PA, where a gentleman actually saw something, got out of his car and took a couple pictures with a digital camera, a pretty decent digital camera, and it went on the internet, and within an hour, there was a guy that got right on the internet site and says, "I'm going to take you to that spot." And the man never mentioned the spot. He never said where it was. He just gave a kind of a general location. Mm-hmm. And this guy says, "I live 3 blocks, or 3 miles down the road from that spot." He said, "I'm going to take you and show you what it is." And he actually got a video, and him and another guy went out, and it was a tree stump in the woods with a lot of moss hanging on it.
Oh, yeah.
So when you looked at the very first picture, to be honest, it did look like it was something standing there with long hair. But when he got there, and there it is.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and that's why it's important. When you see something, don't be afraid, go towards it and investigate it. And the eyes, they do play tricks on you sometimes, depending on what the light or dark or, like you said, moss going on. It's pretty funny how that happens. But we have another question here, and this is from Michael McNeil, and he's asking, any recent UFO and Bigfoot sightings in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, 1 Bigfoot and about 6 UFO sightings. The UFO sightings were all high in the sky, fast-moving, zigzagging, doing goofy maneuvers that planes can't do. And then the Bigfoot sighting was, I'm going to say Pennsylvania, but it's just over the border, the New York border, by about 2 miles, so we classify it as PA. And a lot of tracks. They go into a ravine. The lady's grandson actually went down in the ravines, followed the tracks for a bit, and then they kind of disappeared into the woods. But we'll be going up on that one, I think, in late August. So it's another one of those that, his description was, your normal, pretty much run-of-the-mill Bigfoot description. They only saw it from the back. It's that particular area is all farmland, so there's a lot of land and woods surrounding these farms and in front and back of the farms. And actually, the track started at a barn area and then moved into the woods. And when they tracked it, then it went into this ravine that's on the other side of the wooded area in this one location. And he followed those tracks down into the ravine and across the bottom, and as it was going up top, and they just kind of went away. It was a lot of rocks, so there was no prints.
Yeah, that's difficult when terrain doesn't cooperate, It could have been such a good opportunity to get that evidence of footprint, which you can tell generally the weight of an animal by how deep it is, etc. And terrain. Yeah, and there's all kinds of things that can interfere.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this wasn't any researcher, or anything like that. So he didn't make casts of anything, but he did get a lot of good pictures, and they are what they are, and. The spread on them, step to step, was not quite 4 foot, so that's a pretty good stride.
Yeah, that's pretty tall individual there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, we had another question here, and this one comes from Bill Cardwell, and he says, How does Butch Witkowski handle someone who makes a report and it seems to get investigated and seems very credible, but later they get nervous and retract the report?
I just had that happen a couple days ago. We got a report from way southern West Virginia, and I spent an hour on the phone with the gentleman getting a report, and everything was going fine. And then when I told him, I said, well, we'll be more than happy to come down and look it over and see what you got. And he said, well, I'll get back to you. And the next day he called up and said, well, look, just forget about it.
Yeah, how frustrating.
Well, I don't know if it was fear of, people saying he was crazy, or maybe family. He didn't want to get, family to know what he thought was happening or what he thought he was seeing. But he's a nice guy, but it happens. People, tell you their story and they get cold feet. And then you have people that just tell you the story and they don't want you to do anything. They just want you to hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
They've tried to report it to somebody else, and maybe they got blown off. They didn't want to. They maybe called another group, and the group said, "Look, I don't want to hear this stuff," or we don't do that kind of stuff. And then they get frustrated, and then they'll call us, and they'll tell us the whole story. And they say, "Look, I'm just telling you the story," or they'll send an email through the website or something, and then they say, "I'm just going to tell you the story. This is what happened. This is what I saw. This is where it happened," and then that was it. Then they just they got it out, and that's the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing the power that the fear of judgment or ridicule has over us? To share that story, and even if you can do it anonymously, is incredible. It kind of lightens your burden that you're carrying.
Yeah, well, like I said, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And usually it's somebody that, they're afraid of peer pressure. Somebody might recognize them or recognize the area or the story, and then make a fool out of them or something like that.
Yeah. Well, Eric in the chat room is asking, has Butch been to Trout Lake, Washington State, to the Acadie Ranch?
Two of my guys have, yes. Matter of fact, my one guy's just on his way back from Roswell. But yeah, they both been out to Acadie. I really didn't see anything. Like the one guy, so my one investigator said, a lot of stories. And he said some are fascinating, but again, he said, Butch, they're just stories. There's no proof, no evidence. He said, there was a lot of embellishment going on with the stories to make it seem more exciting, more get those investigators' blood pumping while I'm telling them the story type of thing. And but he said basically it turned out to be a nothing burger.
Yeah. Did they search for, any sort of nests or anything like that?
Yeah, they were there for 4 days, and basically he said, it was like taking a real good walk around a lot of pretty property, pretty area,
Yeah.
But he said, other than that, just another story.
So speaking of stories, have you had any experience as far as crypto with skinwalkers?
Well, when we got the first report, actually, I really thought that's what I was dealing with. And we got a hold of the Cherokee out in Oklahoma and got to talk to a chief out there and told him what we had, what the report was, and I had called him back 2 days later, and in that small time period there, I'd gotten the second report. And that's when he got real serious and said, you need to talk to somebody else. I'm going to give them your number. They'll call you shortly. And I went, okay. So he called, and it was actually a medicine man that called. And I told him what was going on, what we had, how it acted, what it looked like. And he didn't say positively we were dealing with a skinwalker, but he said being the history of the state and all the tribes that did live here at one point for many, many years, and they were warring tribes. They were always at war with each other. The Susquehanna were very large tribes, and when I say large, I mean in stature. They were tall. They were very muscular. The other tribes were kind of, your typical shorter indigenous. He said you could be dealing with a skinwalker, yes. And they were very nice. They gave us a lot of information, how to recognize them, what to look for, certain traits they have. But one of the things he said that we've had now in 3 reports, where he said when they transition from human to a skinwalker, he said there's usually a really bright flash of light, like a flash bulb, like an old-time flash bulb going off in your eyes. And we've had 3 reports, but they were Bigfoot reports. They weren't our reports. They were reports that came from another group that we work with, and which mentioned that these bright lights were seen either before the creature was spotted or right after it went away. So I don't know all about what these lights mean. The second report we had, the gentleman mentioned that as he approached it with his car, and this was one that was chewing on a roadkill and it stood up, he said he thought he saw an aura around the outside of the creature, kind of silverish. Now, again, I don't know what that means. That's the only report we have like that. But the Cherokee were extremely helpful. And, the Cherokee are the Wolf Clan, so most of their skinwalkers are, of course, the wolf. Navajo, you have different types. You have the elk, you have deer. Down the Four Corners area where you at, there are all kinds. There's all kinds of skinwalker types. But they enlightened us a lot on the history. They were very kind as far as telling us how to protect ourselves, what we could do, what we couldn't do. So it was an education. It really was.
Yeah.
And, when you start talking about shapeshifters and, the skinwalkers, all the same thing, basically, the stories are still abound today. I mean, there's still stories of skinwalkers in the Four Corners area. There's, we did find some close, when I say close, in descriptions of things that happened in a few historical reports. Nothing we could pin down, though, because they were just too old. And, record keeping back there was not a big deal. But it is something that's, you got to consider. We don't know everything. We don't know what we're dealing with day to day. So it's a matter of just keep the information, keep it flowing, and try to put it all together in your investigative notes, and hope that something jives or something meshes, and leads you on a different path or leads you somewhere. Right?
As far
it's
as
just the way it is.
skinwalkers, yeah, we've had several different experiences. One being, like you said, in dog form. It looked like a bunch of coyotes approaching me, and they wouldn't go past the light line of my back porch for some reason. Another one was actually between the Four Corners and the Kingman area, and on the side of the road there was this red and white truck with the door open. You could see the light on the inside, so you could see there was nobody in there. And just a little ways down, no more than a mile, it appeared to be this tall, blonde, pale woman, and her arms were distended below her knee a little bit, and her stomach was protruding so much it was like busting out of her top of her pants and her t-shirt that she was wearing, and she was looking the other way so we couldn't see the eyes, but that was the weirdest and human form that I have seen. And then, like you were saying, deer. There's a lot of sightings of deer around here, and they can tell by looking at the eye and by the way it's acting. It's not a deer, it's something else. And, you know, sometimes I think alien, other times, you know, like you said, skinwalker.
Well, another thing with skinwalkers is that from the telltale signs that we were given by the Cherokee was their hair is always very greasy, very unclean, like it hasn't been washed in a long time, and the hair doesn't like grow to the nape of the neck and then, you know, it stops. It'll go down the neck into the back. It'll sniff the air a lot, almost like it's like somebody with a cold. You know, they're sniffling. They're constantly sniffing the air. A lot of eye movement, even if they're standing there talking to you, which they could be. I mean, they told us they've been known to walk into camps and just start talking to people.
Yeah.
They won't shake your hand. Their eyes are very shifty, like they're always watching, like something's coming or something's going to attack them or something like that. And a lot of just little things that they said to look for. And like he said, you know, they can change into anything they want. So he said, if you have, if you're thinking they're always going to look like a wolf, he said you're mistaken, because they could be a dog, they could be a cat, they could be a bird, they could be a snake, they could be a snail, they could be anything they want to be. But he said one of the telltale signs that something is there is that flash of light when they transition in or out of the skin position that they're going to put their body into.
Mm-hmm. The flash of light you're talking about, it was my first real boyfriend, and he was telling me, we had this ditch bank going through Cortez, Colorado, and the kids would ride it on their bikes or walk it or whatever. It was the quickest route through town. And he said one day him and his friend were riding their BMX bikes up there, and all of a sudden there were 2 strikes of lightning. And they said they were these like dog man type things with their arms crossed in front of them, and their eyes were glowing red. And so, you know, perhaps it's like a lightning type shoot, like perhaps they teleport somehow, or I'm not sure what exactly is going on there, but it is very intriguing and interesting.
Oh yeah, it's I mean, you know, people talk about alternate universes, you know, shape-shifting. I mean, there's just so many different slots you can put it into. But again, it's going to be, you got to catch them in the act. You either got to get them, you know, on film or a camera or on a video or something. You have to have something. And although it does sound difficult, it's really not like it's difficult on us, because all we got to do is set the equipment up and turn it on and just watch and wait. Mm-hmm. But we got a couple tricks up our sleeve that we're going to try and see what happens. Kind of unorthodox, but perfectly legal, just unorthodox. I mean, nobody would do it probably. But we were talking about it at a meeting one time, and I just said, like, well, what if we did this, and then we could watch that, and if something picks it up, you're going to see how high it picks up. If, like, it picks it up a couple inches off the ground, it could be some little ground animal. But if something picks it up and it's like 5 or 6 foot off the ground, I mean, that's going to be something else. And so, I mean, you just got to keep trying different things. I know a lot of people in the paranormal, they're trying everything. They, you know, besides EVP, I mean, they're trying motion sensors. We have ground motion sensors that we put around the camp, but like the military uses. Mm-hmm. And, you know, somebody steps there, you know, you can tell pretty much the weight. You can tell if it's a human or an animal. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things to do, a lot of different things to try. But That's all you can do. You just keep trying. I mean, give it your best shot. Even if it sounds dumb or it doesn't make any sense to you, try it. You never know. You just don't know. I mean, it could work.
For sure.
I mean, I'd prefer putting up claymores, but I don't think that's legal.
Probably not, because you never know what's going to walk over that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that could get ugly real quick.
Yeah, it could.
So,
but it's really up to the investigators what they want to do and how they want to do it. I'm not one of those. I'm not a great believer in running through the woods, doing anything. Because where are you going to run? Where are you going to go? I mean, just because you got a track that's pointing north doesn't mean that it didn't go north and then turn south, and you didn't have any tracks going that way. Or running through the woods at night in the dark. I mean, I don't follow that one. I talked to an old Bigfoot researcher many years ago at a conference. This guy was at it for 30, 40 years. He was an independent, not a big, well-known name or anything like that, but he went out every weekend pretty much. And he said, look, the way you find these things in the woods is you go to where they were seen last. You set your stuff up, whatever you're going to do, and you sit and you wait and you watch. He said, don't go running through the woods yelling, screaming, beating on trees with bats, all that silly stuff. He says, how did they look for Bigfoot before they started using bats and everything else? He said they sat and they watched. And he said, that's what you should do, sit and watch. Watch your area. Cover as much ground as you can with your technology and eyeballs. And he said, that's the way you do it. And that's kind of the way we've been doing it so far. So.
Well, yeah, and that makes the most sense. You don't go fishing and go swimming and splashing in the water. And, you try to talk as little as possible because they can feel that vibration through the string,
Sure.
Yeah.
And I got this old belief that I've had for many, many years. You enter the ocean, you enter the food chain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Same thing happens when you go in the woods.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and common sense does prevail. So, speaking of claymores and such, were you in the military at all?
Yes.
Did you have any paranormal or UFO experiences while in the military?
No, but we've gotten a number of military reports over the years. A gentleman, I was speaking at a conference out in Lawrence, Kansas. It was a very large conference, very well attended, and this guy was not on the list as a speaker, but they brought him up on the last day. He was a sergeant in a tanker unit, Marine Corps, and they had 4 Abrams tanks parked for the evening. They put out their guard, and everybody kind of just fell back on the tanks, eating their supper and relaxing, writing letters, doing whatever they did. And he said, we saw this light coming at us from the south, from a combat area that we were having a lot of problems with, so we thought it might have been incoming helicopter from the other side. And so he said everybody mounted up on the 50s, and he said as it got closer and closer, he said it was moving really, really slow. He said, like, you could almost walk along with it. And he said it then fixed itself above the group of tanks and just stayed there. And it was just this bright light. It was not a helicopter, and they could see it. There was nothing but a light. There was no helicopter. There was no frame, no wings or anything like that, no rotors. Made no noise, absolutely no noise. Everything in the tanks ceased to function. All the electronics went dead. The couple trucks they had with them and stuff, they were dead. Wristwatches went dead, and cell phones went dead. Everything was dead. And it hung over them for about 10 minutes. And then it just slowly went up into the sky and just continued on to some mountains that were out pretty far away. He estimated the mountain range to be about 25 mile. And he said it got to that mountain range. He said they just shot straight up into the sky, and that was it. They made a report. As soon as it left, everything came back on. They got on the radio and got to the commander of that unit and told him what happened. They came out in the Hummer and was talking to everybody. And they basically said, got everybody together and said, like, you didn't see anything. It didn't exist. This didn't happen. And if you say anything, you're going to receive a discharge from the Corps really quick.
Yeah, they don't take kindly to, people sharing information, especially when you've been told not to. That's a court-martial in a hurry.
Yeah. That'll get you a quick trip behind bars. But it was a story that, he was out now. He had 12, I think he said he had 12 years in the Corps. And he had talked to somebody, I don't remember if it was a Lejeune or Paris Island. Might have been Cherry Point. I think it was Cherry Point. He was talking to somebody that related the same type of story while they were over in near Afghanistan on some recon missions. And basically the same thing happened to them, where a bright light showed up in the sky and just hovered over them for a while and then just took off. So, there are a lot of reports from military, Navy, a lot of reports, Air Force, Marines, everybody's had reports. And it's usually not a one-man report, like you got somebody out in Point says they saw something. It's usually the whole group or whatever group they're with sees it. And in this particular case, it just happened to be 4 Abrams tanks that were actually down for the evening. And they thought it was a threat when it was coming, but then as it got closer, everything just died. And I said, when I got to talk to him outside for a little bit, I said, did the 50s work? He said, we couldn't even cock them. I said, really? He said, nope. He said, you could move them. He said, we could swing them around, put them up and down. He said, but we couldn't cock them. We couldn't arm them. I went, that's really weird. And he said, the M60s failed to function. Couldn't load them. Now, having a 50 or a 60 jam, not a big deal, cock it. But to have all of them on 4 tanks not function, no, that don't happen.
No, and I've heard that story before, as far as, if you're thinking any sort of violence, they'll shut you down really quick, whether it's freezing up your weapons or freezing your body itself because you're holding a bat or a microphone stand or whatever you may have at the moment. They can hear you telepathically, and a lot of times you can hear them as well, but they do that because a lot of times they don't mean harm. They're just there for testing or whatever else it may be. They don't intend harm. They don't want you to provoke it, so they'll just freeze up your weapons or freeze you up. It's pretty interesting how they have that ability.
Well, his thought was they were just nosing. They were just nosing around to see what was going on. He said it was just like they stopped by to see what was going on. Nothing was going on, so they left. He said that's how simple-minded it was. He said it wasn't like anybody had any contact or anything happened or, no screaming beams down to the tanks or nothing being destroyed or anything like that. He said it was just there. We saw it coming. He said we saw it coming from a way out. He said we saw it on the horizon. He said it looked like a little dot and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. He said at first they thought it was a helicopter. And then it was moving so slow, he said then we actually thought it might have been something from the other side, and that's when we were, jumping around getting ready. And there it was, and then it left. He said it was just like it stopped by to check things out and move on. I went, that's weird.
Well, has there been any reports of, one-on-one contact or, individual contact with an alien?
I'm going to go back to the 40s with that. There was a British pilot. Now, this was an observation plane, so it was probably like a Cessna or something like that back in those days. Single engine, 2-seater, and during an Arab uprising, the British, who were in charge of the area, flew reconnaissance over these guys that were going nuts on each other every other day, and they lost contact. I mean, they had them in contact. They weren't that far from their base, and they lost radio contact. So they sent out a team, and it's still an active investigation with the Royal Air Force and the, well, it was the Army Air Corps back then with the British. It wasn't called the Royal Air Force, the RAF, until middle of World War II, but this was very beginning, 39, 40. And what they found was they found the plane, and they could see in the sand where the guys got out of the plane and walked off side by side. And the plane was perfectly functional, started right up, had plenty of fuel. And the footprints went about 15, 20 yards out side by side and then stopped. And that's it. Those two guys have never been found, a captain and a major. Never been found.
Wow.
So I mean, there are those stories in wartime where those things have happened, abduction-wise or disappearances. Of course, you got Flight 19, down the Bermuda Triangle, plus the PBY that went out after them. I mean, those planes disappeared and they've never been found. Now, that's a long time before people started looking for them. So, ocean currents could have carried those things for hundreds of miles, or they could just be disintegrated. I mean, they're not going to last forever.
Yeah, and a lot of new craft is found every day. People doing diving, treasure hunting, etc.
Oh, look, we're still digging up bodies on Iwo Jima and Guadalcanal. And these guys' uniforms are just like they were put there yesterday, because the volcanic earth that they were buried in is basically protecting the body. It's mummifying it. So they're found, in their uniform just like they hit the beach and where they got shot and laid and buried, and that's the way they look today.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. I mean, you have the Foo Fighters where the orbs were following our bombers. We thought they were the Nazis or the Japanese. They were following the Japanese, and the Japanese thought it was us or the Germans. Then they were following the Germans, so the Germans thought it was us or the Japanese. Nobody knew what they were. But there's some great photographs that were taken from these bombers of these things, both in daylight and nighttime. And they're just orbs. And, following these bombers on their raids. And it wasn't like they were just picking on us. I mean, they were following the Germans, the Japanese, us, the Italians. They were following everybody. Same thing in the Battle of the Coral Sea. Orbs were seen right before the battle started, and then they were gone. And then after the battle ended, they were gone. Same thing in Battle of Midway. Orbs were seen following the Japanese fleet. And after the Battle of Midway, they were seen over our side, over our carriers. And then they disappeared. So there's documentation, there's military documentation of encounters with orbs or things in the sky that go all the way through, every war, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam conflict. It just goes all the way up through till present day.
Yeah, I've even heard of Christopher Columbus or even George Washington right before one of their battles, and they were out on some sort of waterway. I can't remember which one it was, but they had also seen an orb. At first it appeared as a star, and then they realized it wasn't a star at all. And, you even see these glyphs in Egypt and even in native lands of different craft. It's pretty interesting.
Well, that, and you have, there are stories of, I'm trying to think where it was now. Anyway, it was a fishing boat that left and had to go down through a bay before it got out to the ocean. And everybody sat down to breakfast. It was just kind of an easy ride till they got out to get to their fishing spot. And they sat down to breakfast, and when they went up on deck, it was already nighttime. The whole day went by. They never left. They were still at the dock.
Yeah.
Ain't that something?
Yeah.
And they didn't know it. They didn't know what happened. They were at the dock. They never left the dock. They remember casting the lines off. and the boat moving, and everybody went down for breakfast, and the one guy was, of course, up top doing the steering, getting the boat out, and they never left the dock.
Well, you've heard of, different alien encounters where somebody is driving or somewhere in this certain area, but when they come back, they're in another area, whether it be at home or at the dock or where they should be at that time. It makes you wonder if there was some sort of alien abduction from the point that that took them back, or were there witnesses that said the boat never left?
Yeah. Yeah, there are stories abound over things that are seen in the sky or on the ground that either got passed over or, somebody brought up so many years later that nobody even remembered it. But it's strange the way things happen. Just with even the paranormal, when these folks go into these old buildings, churches, insane asylums, prisons, and they see shadow people, or they see stick figures, or brilliant lights, and I mean, what are they? I don't know. I've never really heard a good explanation for what they see. And with CGI today with video, I mean, they could pretty much do anything they want. They could put Godzilla at the end of a hallway, and it would look good.
Yeah, it makes it difficult. That's another thing that's getting in our way is, the new editing technology. Sometimes I find it's better to have a video, but they're even doing it in videos now. Things that would take us quite a while, they're doing in just a matter of minutes. And a lot of people are falling for it,
We use Photoshop CS7, so we can pretty much look at a picture and take it apart layer by layer and see if it's a real deal or if it's been doctored. Excuse me. We don't really have that problem anymore.
So you do have the technology that is able to detect such things.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's expensive, but it works. I mean, that's the way it is. It works.
So what about your own personal UFO experiences? Have you ever encountered an alien, or you've just witnessed a craft, or what exactly have you experienced with those?
No, just witnessed crafts. I've never had any one-on-one with any little gray suckers. And besides that, people always say, what would you do if one was landing? I said, I'd run like hell.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sticking around. What do you think I'm going to stick around for? I'm not shaking anybody's hand that just came from wherever. I don't know where their hand was last. You know what I mean? So it was, and I'm not into anal probing stuff either. That's kind of really spooky with me. So I just, I tell people, you got something that's descending, it's getting close, you want to get out of there. Just go away. I mean, you don't know if there's any we don't know enough about them to know if they're got any radiation involved with them, or or they're carrying some friggin' germ that you don't know anything about. I just tell people, just run like hell, get away from it.
Yeah, you never know what's going on there, if they're friendly or not. When I saw the one that was just out in my backyard, only about 20 feet away from the house, my first instinct was to run out there to get a better look or a better picture or whatever. But as soon as I stepped foot out there, I stopped and I stepped my foot back in the door and closed it, and then called everybody over to see it as well. But yeah, you never do know what they're up to, and this thing I call an alien orb, and it does remind me of the stories of the Foo Fighter. This particular one was like 3 or 4 feet in circumference, and it looked like it had liquid fire flowing through it in a clockwise fashion. But to me it just seemed like it was scoping out the area. It was doing homework for what I don't know. but it was at a slow, steady walking pace. It wasn't in a hurry. It wasn't zigzagging everywhere. And then one other time we saw another one, exact same description, but it was higher up in the air, and it was just in one position, basically just scoping out the area. So perhaps they are just investigating, us or different battlecraft or whatever. They're little investigators.
Well, it's the same thing. We just don't know enough about them. We don't know enough about the bipedals. We don't know enough about Bigfoot. We don't know enough about the paranormal. I mean, there's just so many things that you can throw into it, into an investigation that you could lose your mind just thinking about it. When I moved to the new place here, I put a library in because I didn't have one before, but I put a library in because I have extra rooms. And I had boxes of when I first started back in 1988, 89. And I must have had, I have like 20 binders of reports, papers, articles that interested me, just tons of this stuff. I'm going like, Jesus, how did I ever get this far? But, really all you can do is document and try anything that comes to your head as far as your technique or what you're going to do or how you're going to do it. It's not as easy as a lot of people think it is. Some people think you just go out and, set up cameras and, go down to the bar and have a few beers and come back and check them.
Yeah.
There's a lot involved. I mean, it costs a lot of money. I mean, the one mobile unit that's here at my house, the new one, I mean, that was $39,000.
Wow.
And until all the racking and stuff was put in the radios and communication, sat phones and satellite hookup and all that stuff, and then all the equipment, cameras and all that stuff. I mean, it's over $100,000. And I'm not saying for everybody to go out and buy $100,000 worth of equipment and vehicles, but you got to remember, I started in 1989, so I've been accumulating this stuff as I went along, and up all the time. Same thing with this is the fifth vehicle that we had. When we started, it was just a little caravan, little Dodge Caravan we had, and then we went to bigger Ford, bigger, and now we have a new Ford Transit. But you can walk around inside. The others we had to crawl around. And I'm getting too old for that. I'm getting too old for that crawling around stuff.
Yeah, for real. Yeah.
So,
a lot of people think, you're just trying to get rich off doing that. No, we're actually going broke doing this because this stuff costs an awful lot of money.
Yeah, because we don't charge anybody for anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now, if I would drive from here to help you out in Colorado, which I would do, the only thing I'd ask is for, find us a hotel that we can stay at and just help with the gas. That's it. That's what we would charge.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's being outrageous. But, we'll take care of our own meals. We'll take care of our own hotel. Just, help with the gas out and back. That's all. But, I mean, we've gone North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, New York, Ohio, Missouri, Kansas, Michigan, Virginia, West Virginia. I mean, Delaware, Maryland. We've been all over the place, New Jersey. So it's not like, I have all this stuff sitting out here and I just look at it and go like, wow, that's a pretty truck.
Yeah.
I just get in it and go. And we've always had this thing from the very beginning when I started the groups back in 2009, where, if another group or another investigator needs us or our equipment or needs just boots on the ground, we'll never turn them down. We just won't do it. I won't turn them down. But there are groups out there, they will not work with anybody else. They just won't do it. I mean, they could be 5 miles away and have everything you need to do what you got to do, and they're not coming.
Yeah, it's all about ego, and it's really not.
Well, I've watched these groups over all these years. I've watched them start up, get going real good, and next thing you know, somebody gets pissed at somebody else, so they break it up. Now there's 2 new groups. Now everybody got to go buy new hats because they changed the name and new T-shirts and all that stuff. And they're good for another 2 or 3 months, and somebody in the group gets pissed at them, and then they break up. So that it's the same group, but they've reconstructed themselves 4 or 5 times in a year, and it just makes me crazy. I'm going like, you guys spend more time hacking at each other than you do investigations or research.
It's a lot of wasted energy and time.
Yeah, and they think if they watch mountain monsters on TV or some paranormal experience show on TV, that they're getting investigative techniques. No, you're not. You're getting a TV show.
Yeah, entertainment.
That's all it is. And same thing with the UFO shows. I mean, it's just entertainment. They have commercials. Somebody's paying for that. That the researcher investigator that's on there is being told what to do, what to say, where to stand, and how to say it, and everything else. They even tell them how to dress. We want you to dress tactical. Yeah. Tactical with our group, that means blue jeans, sneakers, and a sweatshirt, maybe.
Yeah.
That's it. That's tactical.
Tactical and comfortable kind of go hand in hand for our league.
Yeah. Well, or you see guys, and I've run into them in the field already. They're out and about, and they may walk past our camp or come into our camp or whatever, either on purpose or by accident, and they don't have as much as a pocket knife, let alone a pair of binoculars or anything else. They got a pack on their back, and in the pack is like soda or beer or sandwiches or whatever, or they camp down, in a valley where we can see them from where we're up on top of the mountain, and we're watching them, have a barbecue. So somewhere along the line, that just doesn't fit into my realm of investigative techniques.
Yeah, definitely. Well, on that note, Butch, we got to go to our second break. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back, and we'll be taking your questions by phone. You guys don't go anywhere.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Are you intrigued by paranormal talk radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from UFO Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us and bring your questions for us to investigate right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
When it comes to the news, we look for the stories that the mainstream won't cover. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter. This is News Director Everett Thiemer. The Encounter is about the weird and strange stories that occur daily, and we scour the world looking to bring them to you. You can hear me with Dave Scott every Monday through Friday in our Encounter news segment. Read us online at spacedoutradio.com or check us out and give our Facebook page a like at SOR The Encounter. So come give The Encounter a read.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. And we have Butch Witkowski on the line, and he's here to answer any of your questions you may have, whether in the chat room or on our Skype line, which you can call from Skype or your regular phone, and that's 1-970-335-9596. That's 1-970-335-9596. Hey, Butch, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
So we were talking a little bit on break, and I had asked you if you guys have had any sightings of Black Panthers in, the southeastern area.
Well, we've had reports, but they usually turn out to be big house cats. That's not to say that we don't have them. We don't have panthers, but we would have mountain lion here in our high country, in the wooded areas. But our game commission here says that they're non-existent here. The last one was shot in 1873 or 1883 rather, and they say that was the last one killed in this state. But I'm not buying that. There's been too many reports over the years of hunters seeing them, especially during deer season while the deer are running, and finding deer that are all tore up, and it's not bear. It's definitely a cat. A bear will just rip you up. A cat goes for your throat. So I don't know. It's there's been so many recent attacks out in the West Coast that I don't want to run into one. I mean, they're just flat out dangerous. They don't take prisoners.
No. You don't generally come out of that attack very pretty on the other side, and generally not alive.
Yeah, although the reports have been out, one of the things that we always say to people, well, you'd know you'd have one around if you were missing, like, your cats, your dog. The kids in the neighborhood would go disappeared. Everything to them is prey. I mean, that's it. They're like sharks. They eat, they swim, and they make little sharks. And these things run and eat and make little cats. That's it. That's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other purpose for them. I don't think they're on the endangered species list anymore. And a wolf, you can tell a wolf attack. I mean, it's more than one. So you got a lot of damage, where with a cat, I mean, they go for the internals, throat and internals, and a bear just rips you all up and just eats you, period. They usually eat you from the waist down.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Yeah, they do have their ways of doing it. I mean, it's not like it's, there's have been attacks of things in the woods that people say, well, coyote, and they look at the imprint or the wound, and they say, no, that wasn't a coyote, it was a wolf, or or a big cat of some kind. But usually people that get attacked by a big cat, they don't live to tell about it. They just don't.
Yeah, and it seems like, perhaps their food is getting scarce or something, because they have been attacking humans more often than usual, and they have been moving from their regular hunting grounds to newer ones.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's pretty much that's our fault, because we took their land. I mean, all the areas that they lived and thrived in, now you got condominiums and hotels and swimming pools and bars and, all that stuff. But we have a lot of problems in Pennsylvania with black bear, coming down into the towns, into the cities, where they've got to go get them out of the tree or something like that and take them back up in the woods somewhere, let them go. But that being said, again, this was their area, not ours. We took it from them.
Yeah, and the reason I had asked is because in Arkansas off the Pig Trail, we had actually not on one occasion but two spotted a mountain lion-sized black panther. And, you look online and everything, and it says they don't even exist out here, and there's really no such thing as one. I know that some leopards, I believe it is, appear to be black, but there's denial about an actual black panther. But we saw one twice just off the pig trail and near the same area, but not exactly. And so that was pretty interesting. I was just curious if anyone had reported any such sightings.
Well, our game commissioner says they don't exist here, but that's purely because they don't want to scare the campers and the people that use the state parks. I mean, that's money.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody would come out and say, well, you got, a mountain lion or something loose in one of the state parks, nobody's going to that state park. That's just the way it is. Or if you got a bear that killed and they couldn't get it, ain't nobody going to that park either.
Yeah.
So with them, for them, it's it's a money thing. But I can understand that they don't want hikers to be out there become lunch.
Yeah, you're sleeping in your sleeping bag, just imagining being a nicely wrapped burrito for some bear or something.
Pretty much it. I mean, bears aren't a joke. I've had guys say that, you can outrun a bear. Well, I got news for those guys. They need to really look that up and look at it, because a bear can cover like 50 yards in a few seconds. And that's not when he's pissed. That's just, he can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get a female bear and she's got cubs, she'll be on you so quick you won't even know it happened.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're prey. That's it, you're lunch. So, I mean, between the bear attacks this year, bear attacks and cougar attacks are way high. Especially on the West Coast, up in the mountains, in Washington State and Oregon and Northern California. I mean, they've had, I don't mean to say they've had a ton of people, but they've had just under a dozen people attacked and killed. And, there's no stopping it.
Yeah, is that just in this year that's happened?
Yep, just this year. Yep.
Wow. That's
2018.
accelerated.
Yeah, and it's mostly been hikers or bicycle riders, on these trails. And, these trails go back into areas where nobody really goes. So that's those animals are smart. They know lunch will be here in a couple of minutes, so they just position themselves. Just like going to a diner.
Yeah, they either smell or hear you coming.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And it's nothing to mess with. I mean, but like I said earlier on in our conversation, a lot of the people that go into the woods are from the city. They don't know anything about the woods. They've never been in the woods. They've never gone out hunting in the woods. They don't know what's in the woods. I can't remember how many years ago it was now, but I'm going to say 4 years or 5 years ago. Some Boy Scouts and their leader were up in Northumberland County, which is like rattlesnake heaven.
Yeah.
And they have all the rattlesnake roundups up there every year. And this scout leader picked up a rattlesnake to show the kids what a non-venomous snake looks like.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, he lived through it, but got bit twice.
Yeah, and from what I hear, just the residuals from a bite is so painful.
Oh, yeah. That, and, I mean, you lose... I mean, if you ever look at some pictures of bites as they progress from the time you're bitten until the time it's all over, I mean, you lose a lot of skin and muscle. I mean, it's... Some of them, depending where you get bit, it can be really nasty. And, like you said, very painful.
Well, I guess those kids learned a lesson.
Yeah, don't go anywhere with that scout leader.
Yeah,
He's
for
gonna
real.
Get killed. I mean, this is the last he wanted anywhere.
He's going to get us all killed.
But I remember my mom, my mom's one brother lived in Florida after he got out of the Navy. He just stayed there. And he'd been stationed there during the war, World War II, and then he stayed there after the war, got married, had kids. And my mom and my grandmother used to go down to visit him. And one time they took my mom's sister along, my aunt, and they were walking along the beach, and she picked up a coral snake. She said, "Oh, look, I found a necklace."
Oh, no. What
Yeah.
happened?
She didn't get bit. She didn't
Oh,
get bit. My uncle knocked it out of her hand. But, yeah, I found this really pretty necklace. Yeah, coral snake. Hmm. But it is what it is. I mean, you know, I always tell people, before you do anything, read up on it, look into it, you know. If you're going to do something you never did before, whether it's camping, canoeing, or rafting, or anything, look up on, read up on it before you do anything, because stuff that seems very easy or kind of no problem, or I can do this, or I can handle this, could kill you really quick.
Yeah, they think, well, I'm from the city, you know, I'm pretty tough. Well, it's a lot different.
Yeah, I mean, most city folk in the woods, that their chances of anything happening to them are very high, because they just don't know. They don't have an idea. You know, it's like the guy says, when you see a bear, run. Yeah, when you see a bear run, you just became prey.
Mm-hmm. Chases on.
Yeah, so, and you know, they'll go to pet a buck, a deer.
Oh no.
That deer will kill you in a heartbeat. I mean, there's just, there was a guy that was attacked by an elk up in upstate Pennsylvania a few years back. I forget how many he wasn't killed, but he had a lot of broken bones. Ribs, arms, legs, knees. It just stomped the crap out of him.
Yeah, that's what I worry about. Most with my kids in my neighborhood. We have a field not only behind our house, but right next to it, and this particular one is an old hay field, and the deer and buck and elk, they all just hang out in there, and they're just like our neighbors. But during rutting season, or sometimes in the morning when the girls are walking down to the bus stop, sometimes they'll try to give chase, and it really does scare me, because they can cause a lot of damage.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, Trip in the chat room is asking, what got you into doing these investigations?
I think in the very beginning it was trying to sift out the nonsense for the truth. And after running into years of nonsense and stories and just stuff that made no sense, it's kind of boiled down to what I do now is I hunt for the truth. I'm not looking for anything else. I want the truth. I want to know that what's being reported out there as bipedal is out there, or Bigfoot is out there, or the ghost exists, or there's stuff in the sky that, you know, is from where, whatever, what it's doing. Now, ufology is pretty easy, because you can look up, you can see them, you know they're not ours. And certain things in paranormal, like the doll, okay, totally unexplainable. So and the light that was going on and off, but it wasn't plugged in. That was another thing that kind of told me that something ain't right here. But as far as the cryptozoology end of it, it's like, okay, I know where you live. I know you're there somewhere out there, and I'm going to deploy everything I have, technology-wise, to prove that you exist. Now, I'm 71 years old, so, you know, am I going to actually solve this? I have no idea. But if I don't, I have people that'll follow after me that are going to. And if they get the truth, at least I'll get the satisfaction on that.
Definitely. So being into cryptids and whatnot, what other cryptid have you taken interest in besides the Bigfoot and Dogman, etc.?
I don't know if you call them a cryptid. Reports of reptilian-type creatures living underground in the old mines, which Pennsylvania is loaded with. Creatures that are living in caves in Pennsylvania, which we got hundreds of those too. But there's really not a whole lot of, you know, I'm not into I don't believe in the flying pterodactyls or the water monsters or stuff like that. Now, stuff that could be walking around in the woods, that's a little easier to put your head into and wrap your head around, because there's food, there's water readily available, plenty of places to hide if they need to hide, and that's all year round. Where, something going in and out of a lake would have to be seen eventually. Paranormal-wise, I think there's a lot to paranormal that we just don't understand or know. Whether it's relatives or friends coming back to say hello or visit, or things from the past that are just coming back to a place where they were wronged or murdered, or something didn't go the way it was supposed to. I think there's some validity to that. The hardest part, though, is the crypto stuff because, somebody comes up with a different crypto monster every day. I mean, half pig, half man, Frankenstein-looking but hairy. The thing's just going on. Now, a lot of that is BS, but the ones that are out there is, the Bigfoot phenomenon, the bipedal phenomenon. Then that brings in the skinwalker phenomenon. So that's another thing to look at. Could we be dealing with a skinwalker? Sure, we could. Could we be dealing with a Bigfoot? Yeah, I guess we could. Should we be our bipedal? Yeah. Those are all viable, and they're all something to, see what's going on. But, again, whatever you come up with, you have to prove it. I mean, if I got everything that I'm looking for with a bipedal, I have to publish that. I can't keep that to myself or keep it within the group because we've been looking so long, we've talked about it so much. Push has now come to shove, so we got it, we're going to share it. I've had people say, well, if you do find something, don't do anything, write a book and then sell it, so you make some money for it. That's not what we're about.
Yeah.
I mean, everything we got was not donated to us. We don't take donations. Everything come out of our pocket. Everything we do comes out of our pocket. So one of the things that we would definitely do if we had the evidence, we'd present the evidence and just do that and be done with it. And then somebody said, well, if you find it and all that happens, then what do you go on to? I said, there's always something out there. There's always something out there. So we would just move on to something else.
So, Tripp was asking, has there, what was the strangest investigation that you didn't think would be much, but ended up being better than you thought?
The doll. The doll deal. That paranormal investigation. I just pretty much thought I'd be sitting there looking at the monitors, watching everybody in the rooms in the house, and it turned out to be that, we got hit with the oddball thing of the doll talking. That was the one that kind of made me sit up straight and pay attention. But I think that was the strangest one. Yeah, that would be the strangest.
So with all the investigations and reports you guys receive, have you heard anything about the Kentucky Goblin?
Not much. Matter of fact, I just read a report on that, I think 2 weeks ago. Don't even remember where I read it, but I don't know if it was on, it might have been on a blog. I read it. I don't know all about, there wasn't a whole lot in on it, so I don't know what they're doing with it or what it's actually done, or because the description was kind of weird. It was almost like it was turning out to be a Halloween character, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't a whole lot of stuff of where it was, what it was doing, where it was going, anything that was out of the ordinary with it, size or anything like that. But, I have heard of that one. There's a couple weird ones down south. I didn't see a lot about this. It was some kind of, the guy said it was like a tree monster, or a tree being. It looked more like a tree than it did any type of being. But there wasn't a whole lot about that one either. Now, I don't know if that was just, the guy throwing out some BS or he actually saw something.
Did he say what it did, or?
Just saw it walking down a path.
Wow.
He said it looked like a tree. Now, could have been moss hanging off something, but then he kept saying, that it was walking. It was actually walking, and it walked like a man. And first thing I guess that came to mind was some wise guy out there in a ghillie suit.
Yeah. That would
And
look
that's
somewhat like a tree, but not exactly.
But that's happened. There was an idiot out in Montana, decided he wanted to scare people, put on a ghillie suit and jumped out on the highway pretending to be Bigfoot. And he's still part of that highway.
Wow. I was about to ask, did he get run over? Because that's pretty stupid stuff to pull.
Jumped out in front of a Peterbilt.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, people have done some dumb stuff over time to try to prove their point that there's something out there, or just to make an ass out of everybody else out there trying to do something. And it usually doesn't end well. There was a guy in, I think it was upstate New York, that climbed up in a tree at night and was making howls and cat calls and stuff for his buddies who were down below somewhere looking for Bigfoot. He fell out of the tree and broke his neck.
Man.
So, dumbasses. But I keep saying, I know enough good investigators. There's a lot of young ones coming up that are very good. I'm glad to see that there are more women getting involved, and that makes it good for me, because I'll tell you what, to be honest, the women investigators that I've worked with and that I know and that work with us are a whole lot smarter than most of the guys. They think of things that we wouldn't even give a second thought to. And they're quick to put things together, where the guys, us macho dudes, we try to put too much stuff together. We try to take 100 pieces and make one. They take 5 pieces and make the same thing. So I guess that's just a female thing.
Yeah. It is interesting, and like you were saying earlier, how kids are the future of our field. I found that a lot more kids these days are, not only really smart, but spiritually gifted more often than you would hear of in the past. And I think, having that gut instinct and that, extra sense really does help in certain situations. So it's looking
absolutely
good and hopeful for us,
Yeah, I mean, it's they really know. I think the biggest part of that is they know where to find things. They know that if they can't find it on the internet, they can find a book, and they're not afraid to read the book. Where there are. I know investigators that don't have but 5 or 6 books. I don't know how they do that, but man, I can't even count how many books I have now.
Yeah, I have a disgusting amount of books. But, kids these days, they can just find anything they want on the internet, or have an ebook or whatever where you can read a trillion books. It's just amazing where our technology is going.
Well, it's like I said, I think the days of running around the woods with a torch in one hand, a flashlight in the other, screaming and yelling at the top of your lungs and nailing pork chops on trees is gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's down to the point now where what you need to do is use technology. It's there. It's out there. Use it.
Yeah, for sure. So, Trip is asking, wild boars have spread further than expected. How does Butch tell the difference between boars and cryptid evidence?
Well, although we don't have them here in Pennsylvania, they are south of us, and their size is amazing. Some of them are huge, but the tracks that they leave, you can see the same tracks going to a pig farm. where Bigfoot and bipedal tracks are much, much larger. And I only know of one report that we had 2.5 years ago where the guy seen something really tearing up the property in the back of his home, and he said it was tall. But now, from where his house sat to where he was seeing this thing, the ground raised up. There was a ridge, a small ridge there, and that raised up about 4.5, 5 feet. And when you put a boar on top of that, now you got a creature that's 6, 8, 10 foot tall. And he sent us a recording of the noise it was making, and we had that analyzed. It was definitely a boar, wild boar. And he said, I never gave that a thought. He said, we got hundreds of them around here, and that was down in Georgia.
Yeah. Well, as far as, paranormal investigative equipment and such, you were talking about the FLIR camera earlier. What is the most amazing evidence you've caught on one?
2 entities on a barn roof that were not there to plain eyesight, but were there under the FLIR. And they've moved a couple times now. We continue to watch that location. They are what they are. We don't know what they are, but they're not human and they're not animal.
That was interesting. And where was that?
That's in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And it's about, from where I used to live, about 7 miles from my old house, but now it's about 35 miles from my old house.
So was there... was there a story behind that place? The reason you guys were out there investigating in the first place?
Actually, we're there for a UFO sighting.
Oh, wow.
And we saw the UFOs, just like the guy said. I mean, in the location he said they'd be. And then what happened was he had called, it was right after Christmas 3 years ago, and said that some family was visiting and there were things that were moving around the yard, but he couldn't make out what they were. They were just blurry. And I went down and got a FLIR out of the truck and just started going around the backyard of the farm there. And didn't really see anything out of the ordinary. And then there was a new chicken barn they were putting up, and on the roof at the one end was this entity. It has no form or shape. It's just the center mass is about 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and the outside edge of the entity is about 32, 34 degrees.
Oh, wow.
So it kind of reminded you of like you're driving down a hot highway and you see how the heat comes off the road. That's kind of what it looks like. And then I looked around some more and I found one in front of a door taller than the one up top. And now they've moved. They're no longer on the roof. One went onto a dirt pile where they have dug a lot of dirt out. But this property is right in the middle of the Susquehanna Reservation from back in the 1700s and earlier. So I don't know what I'm dealing with there at all, but they're still there. They've moved around different parts of the farm, but they're still there. And it's just 2 of them.
Yeah, so you guys have been back to investigate again, and they are still roaming around?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, still there.
Interesting. Did you guys get any sort of feeling off of them, negative or positive or whatnot?
I didn't, but one of my investigators did. When he was walking up to the area where the one was in front of the door, he said he thought he heard chanting.
Oh, wow.
So, again, that was right in the heart of Susquehannock Reservation. And, now is he dealing with a burial ground? Was that dirt that they dug up to put the new barn in, did they disturb something? Is that why they were over on the dirt pile when the dirt pile got moved? I don't know. That's the only problem when you get back into the things with the indigenous. You really don't know what you got, what you're dealing with. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And there's very little information. Although I did get a hold of a group of Susquehannock here in Pennsylvania that's still a legitimate tribe. They didn't have any of their history. Their historian knew very little about the area they were in. He said, "Oh, we were all over Pennsylvania." I said, "Yeah, but you were in this certain valley between these two mountains, and it extended from Berks County all the way to Lancaster County, all the way through Berks County and into Lebanon County." I said, "So that's a pretty far stretch you got there in that valley. That was all Susquehannock." And he said, "I don't know anything about that."
Yeah, well, are they willing to, like, if you guys did find evidence in the dirt pile, if it is still there, I would recommend searching that to see if there are any bones or fragments or any other sort of something that would tie in with the native. But would they be willing to come out and bless the site or help those spirits to move on if that's what they wanted?
I don't think this outfit knows much of anything. Just talking to them,
Mm-hmm.
they don't seem like the brightest bulbs in the box, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They're. I mean, to not know you're the historian of a tribe, but you don't know the history of the tribe. You don't even know where they were located. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's not a very good history of record keeping or storytelling, to say the least.
And they do have powwows here in Pennsylvania, pretty much all over the state. But even when you go to those are people that are many generations removed from those type of people that lived in that area.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they may be 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th generation, and they don't, they only know what they're told or, what was passed on to them. They don't really have a clue of original history because nobody kept records. Everything was word of mouth.
And you'd think even if they did, with, the hardships that they faced being moved from, their original lands to somewhere else, the things that they had to leave behind, and stories that were lost within, people that were...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all that information is pretty much gone. And there's nobody that's knowledgeable enough to find the information or even know where to go get it. Our state museum has a pretty good display and information on the Susquehannock, but it's very limited to a certain period of time. It's not, 100 years worth of information. It's more like maybe 10 years worth. A certain period of time in a certain area is where they live. Well, we knew all that, but you just keep plodding along. Sometimes there's good information out there, and sometimes you waste a lot of time just following up nothing.
So
or you run into.
Oh, go ahead.
Or I was just going to say, or you run into people that are supposedly know what they're talking about, and when we talk to them, we find out that they really don't know of anything.
Yeah, and that can be difficult. So are there any newer discovered cryptids out there that we may not know about, that you are privy to?
No, nothing new. Right now, the big play is on these flying, whatever the hell they are, out in western Pennsylvania. But that also runs gamut-wise. I mean, you'll hear about that for a year, and then you don't hear about it. Then you don't hear about it for 2 or 3 years, and then a report will pop up, and then you won't hear about it again. It's just so hit and miss that I don't know how anybody could even keep up with it.
Do you feel like UFO sightings are more prevalent these days, or people are just, more able to capture them because they have cell phones? or are we actually having more UFO visits?
No, there's abduction cases are on the rise. They have been for the last 5 years. UFOs, as long as you've got a clear sky and no light pollution, you can pretty much find one anytime you want one. They're everywhere. The reports are all over the state. Right now, the hot state is New York. You would think, and for years, Texas and California, of course, because of population, had the highest. But not anymore. It's New York has the most reports going.
That's interesting. I wonder what they're doing there, being that it is so heavily populated.
I have no idea, but now, certain areas in New York, like along the Hudson River Valley, reports go back a long way as far as sightings of UFOs and strange lights and crafts of all types. And then you have a lot of paranormal activity up in that area in the Hudson River Valley. Up toward Valley Forge, there's a lot of caves where they kept prisoners during the Revolutionary War. And a lot of strange going on there. I mean, where, you can go into a cave and all the batteries on all your equipment will go dead. You step outside the cave and they're okay again. And they've done geological studies to see if it was something that was in the rocks or something like that. And it wasn't. It was just an unknown phenomenon. Or you can go down to North Carolina and watch the Brown Mountain Lights. I mean, they're there all the time. We've been down, saw them and photographed them and videoed them, and they are what they are, but nobody knows what they are. And there was geological studies done by the government, 2 big ones, and one in the 50s and one in the 70s, and they didn't turn up anything, so who knows what they are, but they're there. And you can see them with the naked eye, and if you look at them through infrared or binoculars, I mean, they're just beautiful. But what causes them, I have no idea.
Yeah, a lot of times they can be associated with UFOs, but sometimes it can be, residual spirits or maybe even intelligent, such as, in Civil War places where battles have been fought. They see lights in the trees and stuff that look like lantern lights or whatnot.
Well, these things are basically orbs, and they're all colors and shapes. And they've been seen since documented since the 1700s. And the story goes that on top of that mountain, 2 Indians groups were battling each other, and the bodies of the dead were thrown over the side, and that's the side where these lights are. So they say that they're the spirits of the dead warriors.
And Tripp was wondering, what are your thoughts on crop circles?
We had one in Pennsylvania, and that was back in 05, 04. I think it's the wind that causes them. Now, I'm not talking about the real fancy ones. I'm just talking about the ones that are just round. There's no design. We only had one in Pennsylvania. That was investigated, and they said it was a wind downburst that caused it. And that's the only one that we've had here. Some of the real elaborate ones that you see on the internet or at conferences, I don't know. I mean,
they're pretty interesting. Were you guys able to go out to that site and perhaps gather samples of whatever's growing in the circle and whatever's growing outside the circle?
Yeah, and that was sent to a lady up in Massachusetts. That's all she does. And there were some weird things with the wheat, the stalks, way out of my line, not my pay grade. But, I look at some of those crop circles and I think of the Nazca lines. And, they were just done by a bunch of Indians that laid them out so perfect that, today you would need survey crews to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the size of them is unbelievable. And then you look at some of the crop circles, which are mainly over in England. So why is that? Most of them are in England. There's a few here, but most of them are over in England. And they're very elaborate, but they've already proved that they can be man-made. So, that one's up in the air.
Yeah, it is a pretty tricky subject, and there are those cases where there is certain swelling or unnatural bending and such in these circles, and others where you can tell it was man-made no matter how intricate really it is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Along the lines of flare cameras, as far as UFO research, do you find a flare camera works better or night vision?
Night vision, of course, works better. Or astro binoculars, if you can get a pair of those. They're very expensive, though. They're like 100 by 170 or 180, and you can't hold them. You got to have them on a tripod. But you can pretty much, with those things in the sky, depending on how high they are, you can pretty much tell a fast walker from a slow walker really quick. I mean, almost instantaneous. But it's all in the equipment, where you live, what kind of light pollution you have. There's a lot of variables that come into it. I mean, if you're going to take pictures, of course, it's the type of lens you're using. But the skies have been really so clear lately that, I can sit out front and pick out craters on the moon by my eyeball, without anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, but a lot of the equipment, I mean, they're making portable. I guess it comes out next month. There's a portable telescope for sky watches that you put it on a camera tripod. No, not a lightweight, but a medium weight camera tripod, and hook it up to your computer, laptop, and you can do everything from your laptop. You don't even have to look in it. Everything will come through the laptop.
That's pretty awesome, because you do get that eye strain, especially if you just have a monocular, because those are cheaper and easier for people to pick up. But yeah, it's amazing just the way technology is going with all these sorts of things.
Oh yeah, and it's one of these things where you can punch in the address of the star system you want and just hit a button, hit enter, and there it is. Does everything electronically, and servo motors, and you're done. And then you can take pictures or video at the same time.
So do you have any thoughts on the increase of UFO sightings?
No, they kind of run it. I mean, there have been flaps in Pennsylvania, as there have been in pretty many other cities across the country. But it really depends on where you live and if you're looking. I mean, that's a big thing. A lot of people, they have a great area like in Arizona or Colorado or Montana where they got nice open sky, but they don't look, so they don't see anything. And it's unfortunate because I know in those areas you can see pretty much anything you want to see. You can tell satellites from things that shouldn't be there. But
well, yeah, a satellite has its, slow and steady pace across the sky. UFO is quite different. And my kids are even looking up and doing that as well. But it is funny how in this day and age, a lot of people are either playing a game or watching television or looking down at their cell phones, which most times they're doing anymore. But getting out there and checking out the night sky, it's pretty interesting what is up there, and to, kind of ponder, what are they doing?
Well, it always amazes me when people go out there star watching and they don't have a star map. How do they know what they're even looking at?
Well, yeah, and you can even, download one on your phone really quick, and they even have them to the point where you can point it at the sky, and it'll show you exactly what it is. Yeah,
but a lot of people don't use it. But they'll go out of their way to use Apple's Ghost app. where
Yeah.
you can take a picture of anybody and put it on Frankenstein's body, you know, and it, and they fit it right in there. But you know, they'll go after that, but something that's would help them enjoy and realize that what's up there, they you know, they're not going to do that. It's more fun making monsters, or, you know, putting your mother-in-law's head on a Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's just a whole lot more fun.
Yeah, it's very entertaining.
But look, it is what it is, and people that do what we do try really hard to get the information that we share with these people, and it's up to them to really do with it what they want to do. Some people will go like, "Hey, great stuff," and other people go like, "There's something wrong with you, dude."
Yeah. I don't know what you're seeing, but I'm seeing this. Well, Trip is asking, has Butch seen a flash or strobe off of a satellite, like reflection off of solar panels? Past year been seeing them, he says.
Yeah, we see them all the time. It is the solar panels. It's, you know, you have moonlight, sunlight, starlight reflecting off those solar panels. And the one that is the most dominant is, of course, the ISS, because that has the biggest panels. And it's really neat to watch them, because it looks like a strobe light show, but you know what it is. And it's even the small satellites. Now the slow walkers, they're normally in a line, so if you see one, if you just look in one direction or the other, you'll see one in line with those. So you can pretty much know what you're looking at. But yeah, we've been seeing the reflections for years. They're pretty cool, because they flash all kind of colors, you know. It's red and green and blue and gold. It's really slick.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and it is a good way to spend your time pondering such things. So do you have any projects, like current projects in the works?
Right now we're getting ready for 3 expeditions up into our research area, and then we're going to be heading up to that location right across the Pennsylvania line in New York to check out that ravine where the young fellow was following the tracks of alleged Bigfoot. Because he said that when you get on the other side of the ravine, it's a whole lot of caves over there, and he didn't go in the caves. He was by himself, so he didn't want to do that, which I can't blame him. I wouldn't do it either. But that's where we're headed. That's what's going on right now.
That's awesome. And yeah, I don't ever recommend anyone go do anything like that alone, because anything could happen.
That's like, you know, I repost stuff where one person will go into a cemetery, you know, doing a paranormal thing, or they'll go into a house by themselves. I'm going like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard of. You know, you fall and crack your head. Yeah. Fall and crack your, trip over a tombstone and crack your head and then another tombstone. You could lay there and bleed to death. Nobody'd ever know it.
Yeah, or you could come across some drug deal or whatever. You never know what you're going to come across, and especially in houses that have been condemned or whatnot. You know, the floors aren't always so great in those places, and you can fall through and nobody will find you for a week even.
Yeah, or fall through a floor into a basement. I mean, that's it.
So Trip is wondering, what is the one thing that you wish people would do?
As far as?
He didn't say. Perhaps their investigations, or I'm not sure. I'm grasping at straws at this point.
I would just tell them to do their due diligence. I mean, if you're going to do something, do the background research first. See where, you know, if anything happened in that area before, if that house was, you know, even there, or was there anything in the history of that area that is similar to what you're investigating. That's the first thing. The background research is so very, very important. And, you know, and then when you start the investigation, I mean, have all that stuff with you. Don't just put it on your computer and let it there. I mean, take it with you, print it out, or put it on your tablet or your iPad or whatever, and take it with you so you have that. You know, maybe you need direction, or you're trying to get a latitude and longitude, but, you know, this is saying one thing, but the place you're at is not that house you're looking at or that barn you're trying to surveil is actually different. It's instead of east-west, it's north-south. I mean, there's just so many things that, you know, people don't take with them. I mean, I've seen people out in the field don't even have a pencil and paper. I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Or they don't have a compass. That's even crazier. Well, my phone has a GPS on it. I said, yeah, what happens when your phone dies? I guess I don't have a... I said, that's right, you don't have a GPS when the phone dies.
Yeah, in those situations, they generally get drained pretty fast for unnatural reasons, and a lot of times if you do have that backup battery, I mean, that could be gone as well. You never know. And a pen and paper is pretty easy to come by and pretty easy to carry. Yeah, and you know, I guess one of the things is I wish people would just do the basic stuff. Excuse me. Have, you know, a flashlight, compass, pocket knife, small first aid kit, and anything. I mean, there's all kind of bags out there. That, I'm not telling people to pack a knapsack. I'm just telling them, you know, carry a bag that has, you know. Put a spare battery in there for your thing, or a solar charger, you know, just the minimum stuff if you're going to go out. But, you know, some people go out and they don't take anything. I've seen many people go to Star Watch without binoculars. Yeah, that works out sometimes, you know, but a lot of times it's good to have that extra length in your vision. Yeah, so you look at them and go like, so what are you looking at? I don't know. Okay. But I mean, it's just the common sense stuff, I guess, that just torques me a little bit, because what people think they should do and what they shouldn't do, and what they should do is everything. Definitely. So we're down to our last minute here on our show. Is there any other important information that you think our listeners should heed, or any cool things that they can do as far as, you know, their own searches? Well, if they need anything, if they need to get a hold of us, they can get us at uforcop.com, uforcop.com, and if they go to the page where it says terrestrial contact, they can get a hold of me on there. Just drop me an email. If you need to talk by phone on something, whether it's a case or information, or, you know, if you want to check up on a piece of equipment or something, just drop me a line, give me a phone number, and I'll give me a good time to call you, and I'll give you a call right away. If you need us to come out on an investigation to give you a hand, just let us know. Awesome, and you guys are willing to go as far as it takes, so long as you got that little bit of help going. Yes, ma'am. So great what you guys are doing, and we really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you being on tonight, and I apologize for Dave not being here. You know, he's going through a really difficult time right now, but thank you so much again, Butch, for coming on. Absolutely no problem, anytime. Thanks, you have a good night, Butch. You too. And thank you to everyone out there in Spaced Out Radio, Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Paranormal Radio, TalkStream Live, Deep Talk Radio, and wherever else you may be listening in the universe tonight. I had a wonderful time this evening. It was my pleasure, literally and figuratively, and I can't wait to do it again. I would say next weekend, but I'm pretty sure Dave needs me to be on the show again tomorrow. But you can always find us on spacedoutradio.com. Until next time, nighty-night, love and light to all my space cases out there. Don't forget, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a little better. And together, my friends, we own the night. You guys have a wonderful week. See you back here tomorrow, and, you know, make sure you put out that love and prayers out there for Dave. He could really use it right now. Thanks so much for you guys coming out tonight. It was so great spending this time for you, and we will see you guys tomorrow. You have a great rest of your evening, and have a wonderful day to all of you people out there across the pond. Hope to see you back here tomorrow. You guys have a good night, and take it easy. Bye-bye.